Welcome back to the Rhynestone podcast, your ultimate destination for independent musicians seeking inspiration and success. My name is Banner Driscoll, and joining us today is BrandonLee Cierley, a highly talented jazz saxophonist currently located in Portland, Oregon, originally from Tacoma, Washington. With his mesmerizing blend of jazz, hip-hop, and lo-fi, BrandonLee has captivated audiences as a composer, band leader, and session musician. His musical journey is highlighted by two incredible albums, 2022's Camaraderie and 2020's Here Comes a New Challenger. These albums showcased his artistic depth and demonstrated his ability to push the boundaries of jazz, hip-hop, R&B, and lo-fi. In addition to his albums, BrandonLee has collaborated with esteemed artists such as Braxton Cook, crafted compelling EPs, and released a string of captivating singles on Lo-Fi Jazz Soul, an independent label run by Farnell Newton. His musical collaborations and innovative projects have garnered critical acclaim and solidified his reputation as a force to be reckoned with in the music industry. BrandonLee, welcome to the Rhynestone podcast. How are you doing, my friend?
Good. Thanks for having me, and appreciate you taking the time to kind of talk some shop.
Absolutely, man. I'm really excited about this podcast because, obviously I try to talk to a lot of people who have made it, but to see someone I think is on the rise, and I see you as somebody who is just constantly gaining momentum and climbing that mountain. It's just awesome to see and have an opportunity to talk to somebody who's doing it right now. So I can't wait.
Appreciate it. Yeah, looking forward to it.
BrandonLee, there's so many places that we could start and go, and there's so many different angles to this, but the place I really want to start is I want to ask you about somebody in particular, and that is, who is Farnell Newton and why is he important to your story?
Yeah, so Farnell Newton, he's a big trumpet player out in the Portland scene. As you mentioned in the intro, he's the owner of the Portland-based label Lofi Jazz Soul. He works with Marmoset Music Licensing. He's also a founder of Formation Sound with a producer friend, a close friend of mine, Hunter Love. Yeah, Farnell's been kind of like a big brother mentor to me. Even going back when I lived in Renton, when I had my time out there, we did a song together with a drummer, Tyrone Hendricks, called Afternoon Rain, which has, I think, like 2 million streams or something. But that was our first kind of interaction. He hit me up on Instagram. We just started talking. He wanted me to do the track. And then from there, it's just, what it is now. He's played on a bunch of singles that I've had out. He's played some live performances with me. I've played with him, and he's just helping put on younger musicians. That's what it's all about, having somebody push the music forward, and also creating a pathway for us younger musicians to follow our dreams.
Do you think it's important to have mentors as a musician?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's super important because you get free game from them because they have been in your shoes and they've done that, and with them being older and being in the field of music for so long and talking to so many different people, making so many different connections, like it's super important to have, just like with anything, with sports, with weightlifting, always having some type of coach or somebody to help you that has the experience and the expertise.
Do you think that sort of coaching, like that, does that come from sports? Like, did you grow up like very athletic? Like, obviously you're very athletic now. You have an exercise science degree and you're a trainer, but does that coach mentality, do you think that translates directly from sports?
Yeah, 100%. I did music growing up, but yeah, I played football, played baseball, played lacrosse in college for a little bit. But yeah, for sure, 100%, always having some type of guidance. Dad was a coach for me growing up too. So always having kind of that, overlooking definitely helps for sure.
So I want to ask you about your personal training, and the reason I want to ask you about it is there's two stereotypes about musicians that get brought up all the time, and I think exercise kind of negates both of them if you're especially consistent with it, and that is consistency and discipline. Those are two things a lot of musicians are missing. Do you have strategy on that stuff that comes from like exercise science and stuff like that, or is it something that do they feed into each other? Like, how do you approach discipline and consistency in music?
Yeah, I think it's also my upbringing too. My dad and mom were, they were strict parents, but, like we always followed that. My dad was a Marine and police officer, so discipline and all that really came from that side. But with the exercise science side of things, yeah, I think it does play a role into it just because, like, correlating it to music too, if you want to see results, right, the only way you're going to get there is through consistency and staying on course, right? If you're kind of a fair weather gym goer or fair weather practicer or whatever, that's fine. There's no who am I to say, okay, like that's not right? But if you really want to yield the results, you're going to have to put the time in and be consistent, because if not, the end product is going to be exactly what it is.
How do you approach practicing now?
Yeah, so I mean, I've taken lessons from a lot of people: Tracy Canope, Kareem Candy, Braxton Cook, Michael Thomas, Todd Del Judas, Steve Tressler, you name it. I've taken lessons, but I've kind of molded my practicing around, the fundamentals, and yes, just being, ergonomically correct on the horn, long tones, going over certain scale patterns, and then, I'm not the best at it, but I try to have kind of a like bullet note of like, okay, this is what I'm working on today. And I try to chunk it that way when I teach lessons. I tell my students the same thing. Like, some days I practice 2 to 3 hours, maybe 4 hours. Some days I can get an hour in, and it's really about how efficient you can be within that time. I don't think you need 3 hours of practice. If you can get an hour and a half, 30 minutes of just concise practice, it's going to be, beneficial to you. But, I'll pick a tune, try to learn different tunes. I'll go over kind of like transcribing certain solos that I like, or certain phrases of a solo, try to put it in 12 keys. Then I've hit a little writer's block, but I'm starting to come out of it. But I try to write at least 30 minutes a day, for whatever, whether it be a lo-fi based song or a modern jazz based song. So that's kind of how my practice kind of has evolved over the time.
What is your approach to composing? And so, like, obviously you mentioned that your practicing is your composing is inside of your practice time, but do you have any methods for composing? Like, obviously you're very prolific. You've been just cranking out songs and albums here these last couple of years, but what is your approach to composing? And is there any methods for like how are you forming ideas? How does this go from, can you walk me through the process of how it goes from idea to completed song?
Yeah. So, maybe we talk about it later. I have a team around me for certain things that I can't do. Robert Glasper just put something out there. It was like, you can't be the full package. Like, people hire other musicians for help. So when it comes to production and that side of things, I keep a very small team around me that, I've worked with a bunch: Hunter Love, Ayo Kelly, Posey, and, they're very good at what they do. So, we want to bring those people in so we all can eat together. But for the modern jazz type things, sometimes I'll be practicing and I'm like, oh, that's a cool little phrase that I just made, and I'll try to play it again. And then what's really helped is taking your phone out, hitting the voice memo and recording it so you don't forget it. I think that's a big thing. Just, I have a bunch of notes on my phone right now with either half ideas or, it's fun to look back and see, one of my songs off Camaraderie, like, oh, I sang this, and then I played some of this on piano a little bit, even though I can't really play piano that well. But it's cool to look back and go, wow, this is where kind of the idea started. And then you get the end product and you're like, wow, we can see what correlated over, what didn't. But yeah, just, doing that, even looking at some, composers, like works that they've posted online, or if I have sheet music, going over that, looking over songs like, oh, that's a really cool chord movement idea, or, oh, wow, that phrase is really cool. How can I incorporate that sound or maybe that phrase in a different way into my own music? And there's just kind of different ways that I go about approaching it. But yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I definitely, as a songwriter myself, I have a litany of ideas in my phone. And one thing that really has helped me a bunch has been, instead of recording voice memos, recording video. I think it might be different because saxophone, you're monophonic most of the time, unless you get some weird notes going. But with guitar, we're playing like very weird chords and stuff like that. And sometimes people use altered tunings, but we definitely, like, whenever I do consulting and talk to songwriters, that's one of the first things I tell them to do is get video of it so you can see like where your fingerings are at, what chords you're using and stuff like that. So do you go back through those demos often? Like, how often, like, do you just collect them all and then like, oh, I want to make an album, let's start going through and seeing what hits? Or how do you go through those demos? Like, when does it matter to like go through them and pick them out?
Yeah, I think it's Both. I try when I go, so like I'm working on a song right now, for instance, and I've had a multitude of different ideas, and it'll be late at night and I figure something out and I'll record it, and then maybe the next day or 2 days I go back and listen to it and go, oh, okay, I see what I was trying to do here. Then I can get to my horn and do it that way, or try to plunk it out on the keyboard. Sometimes I'll go back for an album and be like, oh, okay, like here's a bunch of different ones. How can I fit this? I try to make it kind of organically as I can, even if it's like, driving in the car sometimes, singing some type of melody or whatever, and I'll record that. And then, later that day, I'm like, okay, like, let me try to see if I can get at least 4 bars out of this, and then maybe put it down and then come back to it another time. But yeah, it's kind of a mix of both.
Now, when you compose for saxophone, are you like, obviously I imagine with the straight ahead jazz stuff, you're letting everyone kind of improvise around the form, but with the lo-fi stuff and the more R&B stuff, and do you have like backing tracks you play to, or do you craft the melody first and then come up with the arrangement around it? How does that normally work for you?
Yeah, for the jazz thing, you have your solo sections, depending on how you want to write a tune through composed or, form based. It depends. Like I'd like to think I have a very strong melodic sense. So like I'll put the whole melody out, figure out chords after that, and then, figure out what I want to do for solos. For the lo-fi stuff, sometimes I'll have a melody that I'll send to my producers, and I'm like, hey, let's write something around this is kind of the vibe I'm looking for, or vice versa. They'll send me like, hey, or we'll be together. I'm like, yo, like, let me hear some beats, or they'll send me something like, hey, what do you think about this? All right, this is great. Let me put a melody over this. And then after we do that, we kind of Frankenstein parts, like, all right, let me do like the melody section here with some backgrounds, and then, all right, here's our solo section. Let's record the solo section. And then once that's done, depending on what we want, we'll send it to other musicians like, hey, I have a really good bass player. Let me get real bass. I'm big into having live instruments on music just because, like, it's the human aspect. That's how you make connections. But there are times where it's like, I have another couple singles coming out where it's like, the drums are hitting how it should be. This song needs to be a little bit more on the production side than having live instruments. So it really depends.
Yeah, and you have an incredible cast and crew of musicians around you. I mean, the people I've seen on your profile on Instagram have just been like mind-blowing how good they are. You're really in a good area for music. I mean, I haven't heard much about Portland jazz scene until I started following you, and it's just phenomenal how many great cats are down there.
Yeah, it's a lot different than Seattle and Tacoma for sure. Like I have friends out here that I've known for years, and then going to sessions, just meeting different people, you get to pull from different pools, and the nice thing is there's an eclectic bunch of musicians, and some will just play straight ahead, which is fine. Some will do just the jazz route, but others kind of dip their toes in different genres, and so that's kind of like what I like to do.
Since you've moved to Portland from Seattle, Tacoma, your music career, I feel like, has blossomed in all sorts of ways. How important is location to an artist's journey?
Yeah, I think it's important, right? Like I like to tell myself, if you're the best person, if you think you're the best person in a band or whatever, right? You might be doing something wrong. Like I always like to come at it from the underdog perspective. Like I don't want to be the best in the band that I have. I want to surround myself with people that will elevate my playing, because the only way is to go up, right? There's no ceiling. And so, there's a lot. I felt like there was a lot more opportunity in Portland than there was at the time in Seattle, Tacoma. The pandemic did play a big role into that. I was playing around a lot, and then, as soon as I started to come up a little bit, then the world shut down. So it was like, what do we do now type of deal. And at that time is when I was like, what, we have so much downtime. Let me just put my head down and practice. And then that's where my first album came out from, was during the pandemic. So but for the live aspect, I think it's important, right? Because if there's no place to play and there's not a pool of musicians, then it's kind of like, what are we doing?
I 100% agree. I think, I left Seattle too. I left Seattle in 2020, right before the pandemic. And I'm now here based in Atlanta. And it's not that I don't like Seattle, but I found Seattle to be, it has two problems. I think the first is it's isolated. So like the first problem I think with Seattle is that it's in the Pacific Northwest corner, and I think it's a pro, but it's also a con. And that the fact is that it's just so separated. You can't. The only other big city you can really get to is Portland and maybe Vancouver if everyone's got visas and stuff like that. And then the other thing I find about Seattle is that it really it's hard to explain, but it's just like there's so many like specific little cliques in Seattle, like as far as like who, like I was in the rock and roll indie stuff when I was up there, and like if you're not in with the right people, you're never going to get ahead. And back to that isolation point too, like nobody was really like taking it any further. Like they would play Numos, or I guess in your case it'd be like the Royal Room or somewhere like that for jazz, but they played Numos, and like they couldn't really, they might play Bumper Shoot, like they weren't going on tour, they weren't going. And the people I've seen who succeeded from Seattle, they've all left. They've all gone to LA, they've gone to Nashville, they've gone to Austin, Texas. And so, it's a weird thing, like how Seattle, like it breeds so many incredible, great musicians, but I don't feel like it was the right place for me. And it sounds like it wasn't the right place for you either at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I can't ever be like, oh, I hate this place, because Seattle, they welcomed me in at venues. Tacoma's where I started, and so I'll never have bad taste. But yeah, the whole clique thing, man, like I'm not about that. So it was like, and I felt the same way. It's like if you in the jazz community, right? If you're not in with these people, you weren't playing around a lot, and I think it's gotten better, but yeah, I just don't want to be a part of that, I mean, there's some of it out here in Portland too, but again, I don't need all that. Like, one thing Farnell's always told me, you make dope music with dope people and you forget the rest. And that's kind of what I've adopted,
Yeah, I need to get that like tattooed on like an arm or something. that's great life advice. How did Braxton Cook get involved with your music, and who is Braxton Cook?
Yeah, so Braxton Cook is he's an up-and-coming jazz saxophonist. He's from Maryland, so the DMV area, went to Juilliard. Yeah, so I heard about him through my buddy who's a drummer, multi-instrumentalist, saxophone player, Machado Majiga. He actually showed me his music in college, and I was like, whoa, this, like, I haven't heard, somebody play like this before, like that just really spoke to me as like what I wanted to do, because his music blends, hip-hop, it blends R&B and modern jazz, and like I'm like, this is a sound that I really like. So I just really got into studying his playing, like transcribing a lot of his solos and whatnot, and I got the chance to see him play when he was in Juilliard with Christian Scott of Tujé Adjoa, the trumpet player, and that was during the time, I think it was like Stretch Music at the time. Don't quote me, but I think that's what it was. But he was on tour and he came to Jazz Alley, and I messaged Braxton, back then. This was in 2014. We were just talking, and then I was like, yeah, I'm going to come out and see you at Jazz Alley. I'm so excited. So saw the show. It was an amazing show. And then I met Braxton, and then we became friends from there. I've taken lessons from him over the years, stayed in contact. After I graduated college in 2016, I went to New York. I wanted to go, and I ended up hanging out with him for a bit. And yeah, we just he helped me a lot with lessons, and he's heard me get better throughout the years. And I was like, maybe there's, I told him years ago, like maybe when I get better, it'd be great to have you on a song or do a song together. And, the time came, last year when we were able to have him on my Thank You for Waiting, because I didn't put any music out for a little bit before my Camaraderie record. I was just kind of quiet, and then we kind of surprise dropped Thank You for Waiting, and I thought it was a sick title with Hunter Love. I had Johnny Tobin, a great keyboard player from Vancouver, on there. And yeah, Hunter sent me, this beat, and I was like, yo, like, I'm going to see if Braxton's down to do this. And I hit him up. He's like, yeah, let's do it. So yeah, it was a really great experience. I actually got to open up for him when he came to Portland March of this year, which was super sick, with his band for the Black Nostalgia Tour. And the song that has 600,000 streams, we were able to play it together on stage live, and that was super sick. So hopefully more music to come from the both of us. If he's very busy. He just played on Good Morning America. He's on tour. Like he's the come up right now. So and it's great to call him a mentor and a friend.
When you guys worked together, how quick was his turnaround from like reaching out to him to getting his tracks back for the song?
Oh man, it was real quick. Like, I mean, I'm sure he took a bunch of takes, but it probably took him 20, 30 minutes, not even. So, oh yeah, man, it was just a super quick turnaround. You know, I made sure I compensated him for that. And yeah, you know, he's like, you can do whatever you want with this. I sent it to Hunter and he's like, yeah, man, these are great. So we were able to get him on both the songs on that EP. So yeah, it was super quick turnaround, which was nice.
That's awesome. I hope we get more, because I think that's one of my favorite songs from you. Is was this for the homies? Such a banger, dude. As soon as I heard it, I was like, oh man, dude, Brandon Lee's changed the game again. You know.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it was kind of the title came up for. It's kind of petty, but it's also like it's for the homies, like people that, you know, I called friends that aren't friends anymore, but also for the people that. You know, are my ride or dies, like close friends, family, like it's kind of got a double meaning, you know? So I was like, why not for the homies? You know, you could take it whatever way you want. So, you'll like the next, I haven't told anybody yet, but I have another single for part 2 that we're doing right now that I just finished. And I think you guys are going to like that one even more.
Oh, I can't wait. Is Braxton on that one as well?
Not on this one, but I'm gonna see if I can get him again for this project, but we'll see. I have some tricks up my sleeve, so we'll see. I'm deciding right now if I can, you know, push it to maybe 4 songs or maybe 3 songs, because I kind of like what I've noticed in a lot of musicians, like, you know, like a Vince Staple or all these guys that are doing dope music, you know, they're putting out like little singles here, single here, and then the full project, or they'll just put it like a quick little EP, right, just to give you a little taste of just something. And so I like that, and so I'm trying to incorporate that on the kind of R&B lo-fi jazz side, jazz hop kind of thing, right? Whether the modern jazz, it's like, all right, put a single out, put an album out type deal.
Yeah, and I think too, what you pointed out there about the release strategy, I think has been something that a lot of people have been doing more and more of, which is they'll maybe record 8 songs with like 8 different producers and beat makers and stuff like that, and they release them all out, and then they see what works, what people respond to, because, you know, there is a synergy and a chemistry with musicians. And so one of the things we've seen a lot of people do is they will put all those out, and then whichever one or 2 seem to do the best, that's kind of how they build the album out, is they build it out with that sound, with those producers. You've seen, like, if you go back and look at Ariana Grande, like, she did that. That's what she did before 7 Rings. Like, one of the albums she did, she put out like 5 or 6 songs with music videos and lyric videos and stuff like that. And then once they finally found a song that worked and a sound that worked, they went all in with that production team, and they made a couple albums like that. And that's really what's propelled her. And so that's a really smart move to do it that way. I really dig that a lot.
Yeah, and that was something that, you know, Farnell and Hunter kind of pushed me to do, because, you know, with their numbers and doing their thing, like they've noticed like you're getting a lot more engagement. And, you know, I've had friends like, man, like, how do you get so much engagement and all that? Like, it's a whole other side of the business. Like, you know, you have to have 2 pieces of the pie, right? So like if your music can be super dope, but if your promotion, release, and all that strategy isn't intact as well, the performance is going to be lower. So I try to kind of make the best of both worlds to work for me.
You know, that's perfect, because that actually leads right into my next question, which is a lot of artists struggle with playlisting on streaming services, which is something you've had a lot of success with. I mean, you go to your Spotify profile and it's just playlist. Any methods or strategies that have produced success for you as far as playlisting?
Yeah, so I mean, working with Farnell, like through Lo-Fi Jazz Soul, he's got connections out the ass. Like, he knows everybody, you know, here, you know, in different countries. And so, you know, working with the label has helped, because he's able to push that out to, you know, different radios, different playlists. But also on my end, you know, honestly, what's been helping me is, you know, just hitting people up on, you know, Instagram, social media, going through SubmitHub. You know, it's a great resource. Obviously, you're not always going to get 100% playlisting, but it's definitely something that you can utilize, because, you know, and it's super, you know, it's not that expensive. You pay for the credits, you know, you find, you know, depending on the vibe of your music or what you're doing, you find the playlist that you think will hit. They'll send you some feedback, and if they like it, they'll put it on their playlist. So, you know, I've had a lot of success that way for sure.
Really, that's fascinating because most musicians I talk to have had horror stories about SubmitHub, and that it's just taken their money, and it's, they don't get any source of feedback or anything. What do you think has catapulted you to success there? Because I mean, you're probably the first person I've ever talked to who's had real success on SubmitHub. What is your process there? Like, how are you picking playlists to reach out to? What are you looking for in a playlist on SubmitHub?
Yeah, so like there's different options you could pick on there. So I make sure I pick the one that says, get feedback. Even if I don't get, I haven't got picked for a lot of playlists, but I get I get the feedback. So they're like, yo, I really like this track, X, Y, and Z, but it doesn't really fit like the sleepy vibe that I want. Right, but hope you do well. Or some people are like, yeah, this was really good, but like the drums just didn't hit that much. So you're gonna take some misses, which is okay. But I just try to find, when I'm reading the synopsis of what they're looking for, I go, okay, I think this will fit. Put that in there. What has also helped too is, when you submit through Spotify, I use DistroKid. When you submit through Spotify, you're able to pitch your song. The one recommendation I tell artists is like, don't expect you to get a playlist if you're submitted a week or 2 weeks before you decide to put the project out. Like, you need to put out weeks in advance so that they have time to look at it, listen to it. So it's not just like oh crap, like it's coming out next week, like let's just give it a quick little listen. Okay, no, or yes. So that's kind of where I found success.
So really, you think Spotify for artists works as well?
Yeah, in my opinion. I mean, again, like I have promoted a lot on there, like pitched the songs on there, and some haven't got picked up, but some did. Like Solitude, for example, I just looked at the analytics today, that has 15,000 streams, and that was one of my highest playlisted songs other than For the Homies, and that featured my mom on flute on Camaraderie. So yeah, and I just pitched that on there. Farnell put it out, I put it out on SubmitHub, and I had success through it. So
when you are reaching out to the curators on SubmitHub, are you going straight to like their email? Are you, because you can, as far as I remember, it's been a while since I've done SubmitHub, but you're reaching out to them directly, and are you sending anything specific? Like, what are you telling them? Are you telling them about yourself? Are you telling them about the song, or do you just send the song? What info are you giving to the curators?
Yeah, so on the hub itself, like before you submit it, it'll ask like it's optional, like synopsis of song or whatever. So I don't leave it optional. I'll put like for example, one of the other songs, Almost Lost It All, I did with my buddy A.O. Kelly, a producer. I put on there, third installment of this EP with so-and-so. This track, has live instrumentation and gives you a vibe of XYZ. Just a kind of short little something so they know, oh, okay, like I can see the intentions behind it. Just certain things, like even the one song that I wrote for my grandmother for her birthday. She passed away a couple months ago. But when I put that out for playlisting as well, I just, I put that in the synopsis, like wrote this for my grandmother for her birthday. It's a song that, reminds me of being at her home, just little, like something small, so they know like it's a human that wrote it and it's not just like robots, right?
Yeah, it's not ChatGPT.
Right.
So when you are sending those, do you include any background information about yourself or self? Because one of the things I've heard people say is they put like, oh, I'm promoting this with a music video, or I'm putting this out with, it's going to be on a Netflix show or something like that. They put that kind of stuff. Do you do anything like that?
So yeah, sometimes, but then, you have profiles on there. I don't know what they do. Like, I don't know if they look at the profile of the musician, but all my other, like my bio and stuff is on there. So like when I just submit the song, it's just about the song. Like if they want to know more about who I am or whatever, they can look on my profile on SubmitHub and they can see all of that.
And how often what would you say your success rate is with SubmitHub?
Oh, that's a tough question. I'd say like a 75-80, honestly.
Wow.
I've seen, like, that's where a lot of these playlisting has come. But like, again, like Farnell has been a big catalyst too, because some of the ones that I try to go for, I don't have that much skin in the game. He does. So like that's where having, a backing label does help, even though, even if it's an independent label, but, he's helped push a lot of the stuff to different playlisting as well. So I mean, again, it's a group effort when it comes to when it comes to releasing. Sometimes I'll release it on my own, but if Farnell thinks it's dope, he'll put it on the label. So I haven't had him tell me, oh, this song sucks yet. So
let's be honest, the music industry is a treacherous place. One bad step and you can absolutely ruin not only your musical career, but your financial life. And believe me, it happens so often, you'd be shocked. I have personally met artists who've ruined their musical careers because they signed one bad contract. I've even been offered some of these bad contracts. People wanting you to pay to fly to Germany so that you can sell some t-shirts, crazy stuff. I'll get into that in another episode someday. But truth be told, there is a lot of gatekeepers out there in the music industry that hide stuff from artists, that don't tell them what to do, because if they can keep that information from you, they'll always have power over you. Now, I've been very lucky. I've been making music almost 20 years. I've been involved in so many different sides of the music industry, not only creatively, but I've also been on the business side of things. I have worked for a major label. I've been on creative teams for major label artists. I have booked festivals. I've managed bands. I've won Battle of the Bands competitions. I have worked with songwriters and publishing deals and things like that. And I've learned a lot in my time. And I've made so many mistakes, it's not even funny. And one thing is, now that I'm getting older and I'm kind of realizing, like, I'm not going to be a pop star. I'm not going to be on the cover of Rolling Stone anytime soon. What I want to do is I want to give that information to artists, and I want to help them, and I want to make sure that they set themselves up for success so that other people don't go and take advantage of them. Now, I'm not saying I know everything, but I am saying that I know quite a bit that can help artists get in front of the right people and help them get to the goals that they want to have. So at Rhynestone, we have a consulting service, and this consulting service has been working so well for so many artists that we've reached out to. The way that we do this is that we work in a reverse engineer system, which is we figure out where you want to go in the next 6 to 12 months, and we give you 3 to 5 actionable steps that you can take immediately to put you in the place for success. And the results have been phenomenal. We've helped artists with songwriting. We've helped artists get tours going. We've helped artists figure out ways to boost their Spotify streams. We've figured out ways for artists to help get their merch game going. And with just a few very simple tweaks and a few key things to help you position yourself better, you can just take yourself to the next level. Now, while I often believe that we've given a lot of help out through our social media and through our podcasts, there's a lot of things that are more personal and more technical that you really need someone to hear your side of the story in order to give yourself a fair shake on what you need, because so much of this advice is situational. So at Rhynestone, with our consulting service, we hear you out, we figure out where you want to go. Again, like I said, we reverse engineer the steps, and then we give you actionable steps that can help take you to the next level. And our services, I think, are incredible. I have been so lucky to talk to so many artists. Now, our consulting services normally run $50 an hour. But if you go to the Rhynestone email address, which is rhynstonemusic@gmail.com, and you give us the keyword strokes in the title of the email, you will get your first hour of consulting for absolute free. So again, that's rhynstonemusic@gmail.com, Rhynestone, RHYNESTONE music@gmail.com, and you give us the keyword strokes, STROKES, in the title. You will get your first hour of consulting absolutely free, no questions asked. We will help you develop a plan, and if nothing else, I hope you guys can get interested in our consulting services, and I look forward to helping some new artists out there. One of the things I'm just amazed with, Brandon Lee, is the fact that you seem to be just everywhere. Like, not only are you a musician, you have a job, you're teaching lessons, you're recording, you are composing, but you also seem to have, like, based on your Instagram, like a very active social life, and you just seem to be always moving and always going. And I'm very curious about what your methods are for time management. And the reason I want to ask is, how do you divide up your days, your weeks, your months, and your years? Or is there any other way that you manage your time?
Yeah, I mean, this is something I still struggle with, like even having a girlfriend, trying to make sure I spend time with her and not just being in the practice room like all the time. So it's a bad question for me because I think I'm pretty good at it, but some people would say that I suck. But I try to get my workouts in throughout the day. I try to carve at least 2 to 3 hours in for practicing, and then I'm all about the healthy balance, man. Like, if you're thinking, I'm not one of those people that think about music 24/7. Like, I love music and I love doing it, and I think about it quite a bit, but like sometimes I know when to turn that side of my brain off. Like, I don't want to be in a room full of people and be like, oh, did you hear this chord on this tune or that? Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I like to separate the things so I can have a healthy balance. I just think that's so important. And so, yeah, I don't know. I just, right now I'm kind of taking a break from work. So like I have some more free time to shed and to do things that I like. So I don't know. I do my best. I do the best that I can.
Do you say no to a lot of opportunities? Like, I imagine with how busy you are, like people are coming at you for all sorts of stuff. Do you have to say no? Like, whether that's hanging out with people, whether that's musical opportunities, whether that's whatever. Do you ever, how do you go about choosing what you do?
I mean, I'd like to think I have a lot of opportunities that I turned down, so thanks for that. But I mean, for playing live, especially, like, I've done all the, I think I've made a name for myself enough now where I don't need to take free gigs for exposure. Like when I was first coming up, like, sure, 100%, nobody knows who I am. It's a good experience to play outside of like the auditorium, at the college, and so I would take those gigs. But yeah, sometimes I turn them down because if it's not lucrative enough for myself or my bandmates that are putting their heart and soul into music and spending the practice time, unless it's like some big festival that is really gonna put us on or whatever, then we would kind of change our train of thought. But yeah, I've had to turn things down because a lot of venues are just they don't want to offer guarantees, and it's tough when you have a 4-piece 5-piece band. Yeah, like I dip into my own bank account to help pay because that's fine, but it's like, I'm bringing a service to you. I'm bringing music, live entertainment, and experience to your venue. Yes, I'll bring people out, but also like, we would like to get compensated for that. Like, I hate the door deals. Door deals suck, man. It's usually like, oh, the venue gets the first $400 to pay our staff and sound people, which some I've been with just absolutely suck. And then we don't make any money. So I've had to turn those down, and, I hate doing it, but like I have to protect myself and my bandmates and make sure, it's lucrative.
You do a lot of collaborations. How do you choose your projects?
That's a good question. I mean, it really depends on what lane I'm going for. So kind of I don't want to give away all my secrets, but one of the strategies that I like to do is, if you've noticed, my music goes from kind of more hip hop, lo-fi oriented. Then I have the modern jazz stuff. Now this next time around, I have this EP that I'm working on is going to be more jazz hop. Then the next one I'm going to do is jazz. So I try to keep it revolving so I'm still hitting all the audience that like my music. And the nice thing is my music kind of correlates into one another. So it's like you may have somebody that loves the jazz, but they might like the jazz hop stuff too because it has the elements of that in there. And it really depends on where we're moving. Like Hunter Love's a producer out here and a singer, songwriter. And for this next project, he's like, I really think you need to tap into this jazz hop because that's, your numbers are showing like that. This Thank You for Waiting, we did really good. So why don't we just dive in deep to that for this next project? And then when, as I'm writing for this next modern jazz record, that'll be separate. So
it is notoriously hard to find a fan base in jazz. I mean, it's hard to stand out in a crowded field, and it's also there's not as many jazz fans as I feel like there is for like pop music, obviously. How do you stand out, and what methods have you used to build your audience?
Yeah, one thing, this may sound cheesy, but one thing I like to do is how I present myself on stage. I'm somebody that loves the 90s, loves the retro. I was born in 94. I'm big into sports, so like usually depending on the venue, I'm always rocking some type of, retro basketball, football jersey, or, kind of like a pop culture reference of something with some Jordans, right? And I've had people come up to me, they're like, oh man, I love your music, and you're always the one wearing the super cool Jordans and all that. Yeah, so you get somebody to remember you that way by not only your music too. They'll like your music, but they'll remember what you look like. They remember your presence. And again, I just love what I do, and I try to promote it because I'm happy about it. Like I try not to sell out. I'm going to do the music that I like and with people that I like. And, if if I fuck with the music, I'm going to promote it. I'm going to stand behind it 100%. And so that's what I'm doing currently right now. I have so much new music out and that I'm proud of, and with close people that I call collaborators and friends, like, yeah, let's take this out and put it out in the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember the first time I met you and played with you. I remember we played at Mojam together. I don't know if you remember this. This would probably have been like 2016, 2017, around that area. Like, I don't remember. You probably know Marshall Hugh. Do you know Marshall Hugh?
Yeah.
So that was right.
Yeah,
right,
man.
right
Yeah,
when,
that's the homie.
Yeah. That's when they were starting up. And I remember I was on stage with you, and I was like, oh, dude, this dude is wearing like an old school Orlando Magic Shaq jersey. I think is what you were wearing. I think is what it was. It was Orlando Magic. I think it was Shaq, old Shaq jersey. Yeah, and I remember being like, oh, God, what's this guy going to play? Like, I just thought it was so out there. And then you played some, like, amazing lines, and I was just like, oh, man, like, this guy's awesome. I was like, this guy's got something. Like, I totally had an idea of what you were going to play. I thought it was going to be maybe something a little more fratty, like Dave Matthews Band or something like that. And then you start playing these killer lines, and it was awesome. And I think that's really what sold me is you're 100% right. Like, it made you stand out in that whole crowd. I mean, there's a million jazz guys in suit and ties, but who's got, Shaq jerseys on,
Yeah, man. Like, it's the school. I call it the Roy Hargrove School of Thought. Like, one of them, because, there's a live video performance of him. I think it was like the VMAs or something. Dude's rocking like a burgundy suit with or a tan suit with these burgundy like Nikes. I'm like, that is sick. Like, that's dope. I don't want to have to wear a suit or, a suit and a tie. I did that, man. And it's like, I don't know, it was just job. I was like, this isn't me. Like, there's a time and a place for that, depending on the event. But like when I'm playing my music and I'm playing out, I want my personality to be a part of that. And so why not? Some people will call it the fuckboy look, whatever you want to call it. Like, call it what it is, whatever. But like, I'm doing and wearing what I love. I'm playing music that I love, and that's all that matters to me.
Yeah, I love it, man. And I think also it breeds originality. Like, you, not only in the musical sense, but like visually, like, you're unique. You have something that separates you from everybody else. Like, that's what stands, I think, helps you stand out in the crowd. So how do you deal with criticism?
Man, I deal with it actually pretty well. I don't want you to tell me, oh, you sound so good. Like, this is a thing in the jazz thing. They're like, oh man, you sound so killing. You're so good, blah, blah, blah. But do I really though? Or are you just trying to be nice? Like, I get it to a certain point, but it's like, I want to get better. Like, I think, there's this phenomenon in kind of like exercise psychology where it's called the feedback sandwich, right? Like, I use this with clients. Like, they do a movement or do something, and you go, okay, this was really good. Keep that. Maybe we need to fix X, Y, and Z here. Maybe, like externally, internally rotate here, whatever. But this was really good as well. So it's kind of, you get positive, and then constructive criticism, but not like, that was good, you suck, that was good kind of thing. And so that's how I like to work. I'm trying to get out of the train of thought of like being like, oh man, I just suck all the time. I suck all the time. I suck all the time. I suck. I wish I was as good as you. I suck. Like, I'm bad at that. That's something that I'm trying to break, because, I've had friends tell me, they're like, dude, shut up. Like, you have to stop saying that. Like, that's not true. And what starts to happen is you start, like, your psyche starts to believe that. And us as musicians, we're our biggest critic. You tell yourself, I suck all the time. It's going to come out in your playing, or it's going to come out in your work ethic. And so we need to break that cycle. And I don't think I'm the only one that feels that way. I feel like a lot of people are like that, but they won't come out and say it. And so it's something that us musicians need to break from, I think.
What do you do to break from that?
I'll take a break. I'll look on Instagram, watch movies. But, I try to tell myself in the time, like, everybody started where you're from. Everybody's at a different phase of their musical career. I think of it like the MCU phase. They got 20 billion phases, but like, everybody's at a different phase of where they're playing. You will get there at one point, but you have to get through the trenches where you're at in order to level up to the next level. So that's kind of what I look forward to when I'm practicing and composing and whatnot. Like, I have this body of work. this is just one phase of that. So the next ones, I want to be better than that.
Well, I don't think there's a better way to end that portion of the podcast than with that, man. So I'm going to give you a few rapid fire questions, and then I'm going to give you a chance to plug something, and we'll call it good. Sound good?
That sounds great, man.
Awesome, man. So these are the rapid fire questions. Number 1, what is the last album that blew your mind?
Oh man, just a rapid fire question. The last album, we might have to come back to that one. Go to the next one. We're gonna come back to that. I gotta think about that one. I gotta even think about that one.
Really? Okay. All right. Okay. Who is an artist that deserves more attention?
Any genre?
Any genre.
Honestly, bro, he's gotten a lot of attention, but Harry Styles, man, I know he's been in the game, but like that dude's last album was a banger. Like I don't listen to Harry Styles that much, but my girlfriend was bumping Satellite one time. I was like, "Who is this? I like this." She's like, "It's Harry Styles." I was like, "No way." So, I think he needs more. I think he needs even more love, in my opinion.
Really? So the song Satellites is the one you recommend?
That's my shit. That is my shit. I love that song. That's not like the jazz or lo-fi stuff, but like, yeah, that's my shit.
Is there anything in the jazz lo-fi world that deserves more attention?
There's just so many people. Like, I think my buddy Hunter Love might be the next come up. I think for him, because he has been working his butt off. He's produced for a lot of people. His music and Farnell's music has been on like Gatorade commercials, TV shows or whatnot, but he makes dope music. And so, I think he deserves a little more love in that sense.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've seen his stuff through you, and I think I follow him with Rhynestone's page, and he's doing just amazing stuff, just consistently putting out hits.
Yeah, him and another one, he's signed with Bastard Jazz, and I'm working on stuff with him. I worked on his EP as Posey. That's his stage name's Posey. His name's Rudy, but he's another one. Like, his music is great, man. Like, he, I love the way that he produces. He's a great hang. Like, that's one thing I make sure is, like, if I'm working with people, I want them to be a good hang. Like, you could be the most killing producer musician, but if you're a dick, I don't. No thanks. Like, I'd rather you be a down-to-earth, super cool person, hang out with. So he's on the come up.
Awesome. I'm excited to see it. You guys just did a single together recently, didn't you?
We're working on a project, but we got a single coming out soon. We just have a few loose ends to figure out, but other than that, we'll be good. Yeah.
If you lost all of your gear and had to start over with only $1,000, what would you get?
Student model saxophone. Easy. If I lost it all, I'd go to a Ted Brown or somewhere, buy me a little starter kit saxophone again, and play that thing. Just because, gear is important, but also like, it's the foundation. You should be able to take any horn and make it sound good. So,
shout out Ted Brown, one of the best music stores in the world, by the way. I love Ted Brown. I'm originally from Gig Harbor, so I know I'll love Ted Brown. Great spot. Who is a saxophonist you look up to?
Walter Smith, the third. I've gotten to take lessons with him. I saw him live in Portland. Ben Wendell,
Awesome.
John Coltrane, Dexter Gordon, Charlie Parker, Michael Brecker. You name it. I got more, but those are some of my favorites.
What do people get wrong about being a musician?
That we're not all alcoholics. Like, it's just such a glorified thing in the thing. And, another thing is, like, all jazz musicians are just ornery and, like, assholes, and that's not true. Like, maybe the older cats, just because, I feel like just because the music has been moving forward in a different way. But, yeah, I think those are the 2 points.
I love it. That's very true. I stopped drinking here last year, and I have noticed how much there are a lot of musicians that do drink, but I've noticed the stigma is still there, that people think like, hey, let's go out and have a beer. Let's go out. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that anymore. Like, let's go make something in the studio. Let's stop drinking. Come to my studio. I don't want to come hang out at your bar. Well, Brandon Lee, thank you so much for coming to the Rhynestone podcast. We've learned so much, man. I really love all the things you had to say about SubmitHub, about your musical expression, about your discipline. So many incredible things. What are you working on next? Where can people find you? And what is your favorite flavor of ice cream? I don't know. Pick something fun to say at the end.
Yeah, I want to say thanks, Banner, for having me on here. I love what you're doing with Rhynestone Productions as your own entity. I think you have a great backing and support system, which is great, which I think is good, and you're on the come up, my friend. So just wanted to say that. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at BrandonLee_Cierley. Brandon Lee is my whole first name. I was named after Bruce Lee's son, little fun fact. Yeah, I have a Lo-Fi Jazz Soul Summer Solstice compilation that I'm on coming out in a few weeks. I have a single with Posey coming out here soon. I'm working on an EP with him. I'm working on an EP with Hunter Love. Thank You for Waiting Part 2. Got a lot more music coming out. Next show that I am playing is July 15th at Jack London. Joining me will be a super great Seattle-based group called Animal Face. So they're super sick. If you know whoever's listening to this, come on out. Favorite flavor of ice cream, man? I'm all about the Oreo. That's my favorite.
The cookies and cream?
When I eat it, I don't really eat ice cream. Yeah, cookies and cream. I don't really eat ice cream like that, but that was my favorite growing up.
That's fair. Well, Brandon Lee, thank you so much for coming, and until next time, my friend.
All right, Banner. Thank you so much, man.